Pick up the nearest piece of clothing right now. A shirt, a sock, a jacket. You have probably never once stopped to ask why it exists. You wear it because it is cold, because it is normal, because everyone does. But that answer is wrong. Scientists have known for decades that clothing did not start because of cold. And when you find out what it actually started because of, you will never think about what you are wearing the same way again. Let us get the obvious theory out of the way first. Cold. The Ice Age theory. Humans moved into colder climates. They needed warmth. They wrapped themselves in animal skins. Clean, logical, done. Except it does not hold up. Neanderthals lived through ice ages far harsher than anything modern humans faced in their early history. They survived temperatures that would kill an unprotected human in hours. And the evidence for Neanderthal clothing is thin. Scrapers for processing hides, yes. But no needles. No tailoring. No fitted garments. They wrapped. They did not dress. And here's what makes that strange. Neanderthals had bigger brains than us by volume. They were physically stronger. They had fire. They had tools. They survived for 400,000 years in brutal conditions with minimal clothing. So if cold was the reason clothing started, Neanderthals should have invented it first. They didn't. Modern humans did. And modern humans invented clothing somewhere between 170,000 and 83,000 years ago, during a period in Africa that was not particularly cold. So what were they covering? In 2003, a scientist named Mark Stoneking at the Max Planck Institute decided to answer this question using the most unexpected evidence imaginable. Lice. Specifically, the evolutionary split between head lice and body lice. Head lice live in hair. Body lice live in clothing. They are the same species that diverged when humans started wearing enough fabric for a separate population to colonize it. By calculating the genetic distance between the two lice populations, Stoneking's team could estimate when clothing began. The answer came back at roughly 170,000 years ago, in Africa, during a warm period. Not cold. This was not survival. This was something else entirely. And here is where it gets complicated. Because 170,000 years ago, your ancestors were already fully modern humans biologically. The same brain you have right now. The same capacity for abstract thought, for social calculation, for reading a room. And a brain like that does not just cover itself for warmth. A brain like that covers itself for reasons that are far more interesting. Think about what clothing actually does beyond temperature. It controls what other people can see. It signals who you are before you speak. It creates mystery. It draws attention to some things and hides others. It communicates status, group membership, availability, danger. In a species that evolved to read faces and bodies for social information, clothing is not protection. Clothing is communication. Anthropologists studying the few remaining uncontacted or minimally contacted groups on Earth have found something consistent. Even in warm climates where temperature is not a factor, humans decorate and cover themselves. The Mercy of Ethiopia wear elaborate lip plates. The Himba of Namibia cover their skin in red ochre paste. Groups in the Amazon basin with almost no material possessions still wear woven bands and pigment. Across every culture ever studied, there has never been a single human society that wore nothing and did nothing to modify the appearance of the body. Not one. In every corner of the world, in every climate, across every period of history, humans have always covered and decorated themselves. Which means this behavior is not cultural. It is biological. It is something the human brain insists on doing regardless of environment. But why? What is the underlying drive? The answer takes you somewhere uncomfortable. Your ancestors did not just start wearing clothes. They started controlling visibility. And the reason they needed to control visibility connects directly to something that was changing in human society around the same time. Pair bonding, monogamy, or at least something closer to it than what came before. Primates that live in promiscuous social groups, where any male can mate with any female, do not have concealed ovulation. Female chimpanzees advertise fertility loudly and visibly, with dramatic physical swelling and color change. Every male in the group knows exactly when a female is fertile. There is no ambiguity. There is no mystery. There is no reason for concealment because the social structure does not require it. But human females are different. Human ovulation is hidden. Completely. You cannot tell from looking at a woman whether she is fertile. Even she often cannot tell precisely. Scientists call this concealed ovulation, and it is almost unique among primates. And the leading theory for why it evolved is that it shifted power. When fertility became invisible, a male could no longer simply wait for the signal and compete. He had to stay close. He had to invest. He had to form a bond that persisted beyond a single fertile window. Concealed ovulation, some researchers argue, is what pushed our species toward long-term pair bonding, toward what eventually became the family unit, toward the social structures that made civilization possible. And clothing extended that logic. If concealed ovulation hid the internal signal, clothing hid the external body. It deepened the mystery. It forced social negotiation. It made the body something that had to be revealed rather than simply seen. In a species already wired for intense social reading, that shift had enormous consequences. Suddenly, the body became a message you could choose to send or withhold. Attraction became something that operated through layers, through concealment, through the tension between what is shown and what is not. Your brain is still running that exact program every time you decide what to wear. And then status entered the equation. Once clothing existed, it could not stay neutral for long. The quality of the hide, the complexity of the stitching, the rarity of the pigment used to color it, all of it became readable. All of it became information about who you were, where you stood, what resources you had access to. Archaeologists have found evidence of ochre-dyed clothing and shell bead decoration going back over 100,000 years. These were not functional additions. Ochre does not make you warmer. Shell beads do not protect you from predators. They were signals, deliberately constructed signals, sent to every person who looked at you. You are still doing this. Every brand label, every dress code, every uniform, every deliberate outfit choice you have ever made is the same ancient system running. You are sending signals. You are controlling visibility. You are managing what other people know about you before you speak. The only thing that changed is the medium. But here is the part that should genuinely unsettle you. We no longer understand the signals we are sending. For most of human history, a group of 30 people wore materials they made themselves from resources they gathered themselves. Every garment was legible. Everyone knew what the symbols meant. The dye, the weave, the decoration, all of it mapped directly onto the social world they lived in. The message was clear. Now you live in a world of 7 billion people, mass-produced fabric, and trend cycles that change faster than seasons. You are still sending signals. You are still using clothing to communicate status, group membership, identity, availability. But the system you are sending those signals through is so enormous and so fragmented that half the time the message lands completely differently than you intended. You dress for one audience and get read by another. You wear something that means one thing in your city and something completely different 50 miles away. The hardware is ancient. The software is broken. And underneath all of it, the original impulse is still running. The same one that pushed a human being in Africa 170,000 years ago to take a piece of hide and wrap it around themselves, not because they were cold, but because they wanted to control what someone else could see. Because they understood, without words, without theory, that visibility is power. That concealment is strategy. That what you choose to cover is just as important as what you choose to show. You picked up a piece of clothing at the start of this. You probably did not think twice about it. But that object in your hand is 170,000 years old. Not the fabric, the idea, the need. The calculation your brain ran the moment you decided what to put on today without even knowing you were running it. You were not getting dressed. You were managing information. You have been doing it your entire life. So has every human who ever lived. And it started not because the world got cold. It started because we got complicated. There is one more layer to this that almost never gets discussed. Shame. Every major religious and mythological tradition that has ever tried to explain the origin of human clothing lands on the same answer. Not cold. Not practicality. Shame. The oldest written explanation for why humans wear clothes is in the book of Genesis. Adam and Eve eat the fruit. Their eyes are opened, and the first thing they do is cover themselves. Not because they are cold, because they are suddenly aware of being seen. This shows up independently across cultures that never had contact with each other. Creation stories from West Africa, from indigenous North America, from ancient Mesopotamia, multiple traditions place the origin of clothing at the moment of self-awareness. At the moment humans became conscious of being perceived by others. The myths got